killers. Welcome to Dallas, sharks and gorillas. The girls, they going harder than welcome to Dallas.
Hola, ¿cómo estás? Back again with a second part of my recent series regarding the Karmelo Anthony situation. The imbroglio between Austin Metcalf and Karmelo Anthony. So, I recently I got a comment regarding how critical the knife was to the litigation here. And it said something to the effect of, like, yes, it does, because he was caught with it, the knife presumably, 2 weeks ago, and they told him to throw it away and he didn't. And apparently that's why the knife is important in the case, because somehow that conclusively, proves intent. Of course, you inadvertently proved my point. So what you're saying is he was carrying the knife for 2 weeks, and there's not 2 weeks of bodies piled up. The knife and the murder are not related. They seemingly are, but they're not. The fact that he has a knife does not make him a murderer. So thanks for that comment. That was brilliant. Anyways, moving on. So there's a couple things that we needed to cover that just simply didn't have enough time to yesterday. So back to the concept of private and public space. Because this is like a key thing. It's just it's a complicated concept to explain. I guess look at it this way. So if a burglar or a person broke into a home, and the home owner decided he was going to defend his property and his family, and through the course of doing that, lost a fight with the intruder and was killed by the intruder. The intruder cannot turn around after being arrested and claim self-defense, right? That would be absurd, because it would obviously trump the homeowner's right to self-defense. And that makes sense, except that that's a home. This is a tent. Home is a clearly defined private space, and it's even defined as such under our castle doctrine, or our version of it. So again, that's what's complicated and sticky about the situation, is that, whether or not this designated team tent was considered a private space or not. I even researched this. The law doesn't define locker rooms as private space, even though they have a door and walls. They're called something like semi-private spaces, where presumably is limited access to it. However, it's not completely shut off to outside people like parents and coaches to some whatever. But the difference is there's the room is designed to change out of your clothes, so there's naked people in there potentially. In the case of a tent, there isn't, and so I don't know how. That's what's really difficult, because it makes a big difference on whether or not on defining who, Austin Metcalf or Karmelo Anthony, which one of them was the true aggressor, and that's a big problem. But to that point, the biggest thing that I wasn't able to cover was, at least in the state of Texas, we have something that I've always called duel law, okay, because it stems from cowboys dueling and all that. What this law, and I'm not sure if it's actually like a written law or if it's just sort of a way of policing incidents, where cops are given the authority to use their own discretion when fights break out and things like that. So this, at a cursory glance, appears to be nothing more than two high schoolers fighting. It looks like at least from a cursory glance, and aside from the fact that the outcome is obviously tragic, but at least how it starts. And in that case, you would apply something called mutual combatant exemption. So mutual combatant exemption, again, like what I call dual law, just means that if two people willfully enter and engage each other physically, the outcome cannot be litigated as someone assaulting the other because there are no victims. There's only winners and losers. And so aside from the knife, that's what we have. We have mutual combatants, it would seem. It almost doesn't even matter who the aggressor was, who was the aggressor in terms of how it got started. It's just that Karmelo Anthony, unfortunately, was fearful enough to wield a knife, and that was that. I mean, I hate to, I'm not trying to make light of it, but I'm sure many of you have seen the extraordinary movie Con Air, where Nicolas Cage, long hair, gets into a bar fight defending his wife with a couple guys, and because he's military trained or whatever, he ends up killing a guy with his bare hands with no intent, but ended up killing him nevertheless, and was put in maximum security prison with fucking the Viper or Snake and Spider and all those other guys, whatever it was. But the point is, had it not been for the knife, which of course in that analogy is replaced with his military training, right? You would get it's manslaughter. This is a manslaughter case. And it appears to be a manslaughter case from the beginning. Now, what could change that situation if we could just close our eyes and imagine what could elevate this case to murder, right? Is if Austin Metcalf said, "Okay, listen, man, please get up. Please, okay, that's it. I'm gonna go tell my teacher." Turns around and tells his teacher, and when his back's to Karmelo jumps up and then pops him in the back a few times and kills him. Okay, that's not a mutually agreed upon engagement. It's not it's not two mutually willful combatants. But that's not what happened. What happened was Austin Metcalf, as far as we can tell, which I still don't know if they've released that footage yet, but I don't even know if it'll help because it might have been obscured by the tent, but he is just as likely to, it sounds like he actually committed battery first, at least, and put his hands on him. But he definitely, had it not been for the knife, this would have ended up being just a fist fight that got people muddy and pissed off. They probably would have just been kicked out of the event and excluded from it. So again, the knife is important, but not in the sense that it defines his intent to commit murder. So, but again, one thing people are missing is these are kids. There are adults that are assumed authority figures that are just not present. To me, that is very strange. I mean, I played hockey and I've also coached it. I mean, you are responsible for the safety of your players and even spectators to some degree. Keeping your kids on a tight leash so that they're not wielding their sticks as weapons in the stands and all that kind of stuff. The coach is the one that's responsible for it. You're present all the time. You lock the kids in the locker room, let them get dressed. So they're not out there mixing it up with people. I don't know. That might be the nature of our game versus track meets, but nevertheless, somebody needs to ask questions. Where are these guys, and why were they not there? It's very strange. So, anyways, we'll leave it there. Please, as always, subscribe, drop your comments. Shut the fuck. Drop your comments. Let me know if I'm on point. This just seems to be a manslaughter case. So, let me know. Until next time, Poofy Man.
Welcome to Dallas, the home of
I'm outta
the
here.
killers. Welcome to Dallas, sharks and gorillas, the girls, they going harder than Welcome to Dallas, we lost some legends. Welcome to Dallas, we're hood, you rep it, be careful. You know the rest, be steady.